out into the other room when we go for morning tea, just be aware. All right, well, I think at this point I'm going to hand over to Kim for our reading this morning. Thank you, Kim.
So our reading today comes from Matthew chapter 9, verses 27 to 38. So as Jesus went from there, 2 blind men followed him, crying loudly, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." When he entered the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus said to them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" They said, "Yes, Lord." Then he touched their eyes and said, "According to your faith, let it be done." And their eyes were opened. Then Jesus sternly ordered them, "See that no one knows of this." But they went away and spread the word about him throughout that district. After they had gone away, a demoniac who was mute was brought to him. And when the demon had been cast out, the one who had been mute spoke, and the crowds were amazed and said, "Never has anything like this been seen in Israel." But the Pharisees said, "By the ruler of the demons he casts out the demons." Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and curing every disease and every sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the labourers are few. Therefore ask the Lord of the harvest to send out labourers into his harvest." Your word, O Lord, is a lamp to our feet. And a light to our path.
Thanks, Kim. When Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. There are a lot of people in our world. There are a lot of people in our lives. There are a lot of people in our communities. There might be a few of you here today who feel a bit lost. I sometimes test that statement in other settings other than church. I'll say that just somewhere to say that just seems to be a lot of people who are lost. And it's regularly met with nodding heads. It's not just those of us sitting in the room who make that statement and have some sense of understanding or belief in it or experience of it. I think it's a general statement in our community that there are quite a number of people who are lost. Now, of course, the philosophers will be sitting there saying, "Oh yes, well, depends what you mean by lost." And, it does depend what I mean by lost in some ways. But there are a number of people who are lost, I think, in the sense of, who am I? There's a lot of distractions in our world that will tear you away from who you are, like what you value, what you understand, what you believe, what you're hoping for, what it means to be not just functional but flourishing in the roles that you hold in life. There's a number of people for whom the question of meaning is a tough one. Why am I here? There are so many other people who do what I do so much better. Why am I here? Why was I even born? There are people who ask the question of purpose. I am here, but what am I here for? What's my contribution? What am I here to do? What's my fit? let me say that if you are ever in the space where you are in, where you've had the opportunity to have those kind of precious conversations with people, you are standing in holy ground. Take your shoes off. You're on holy ground, sacred ground. Whenever anybody is sharing with you a lack of identity or meaning or purpose, when they're seeking reason for life or reason in life, you are on holy ground. And it means you, somewhere on the line, you've done the hard work of listening. It also means you've done the deep spiritual work of compassion, of meeting. You're on holy ground whenever everyone's sharing with you from that space. A lot of people in life around us, and maybe in your own experience, in the absence or in the pain that comes from not being able to answer a question of identity or purpose or meaning, there's a number of different responses in life. Some people embrace the search. And some people will say that's the deepest part of being human, it's the deepest part of being spiritual, is to embrace the search for meaning, for purpose, for identity. I think a lot of us would know and accept that in our world, a lot of people don't embrace that search. And they either try to numb the pain and anaesthetise themselves through one form or another, or they just avoid it. Or there are others for whom it doesn't really matter. Life's worked out pretty well for me. I don't need to do that kind of work. And that's okay. But our passage of scripture that this morning reminds us, and our radars should go up a little bit, when we're told that Jesus felt compassion for the people because they seemed to be harassed and helpless. There are a number of people. I know this isn't just me. I know when I say these things that you know this too. There are a number of people that we know who are harassed or feeling helpless. Harassed by the systems, and their mental health goes on them, or they end up without employment or housing. They end up socially isolated. Many people end up alone because systems fail. Business systems, government systems, religious systems. There are many people who end up in that harassed space of life where they're either powerless in the sense that life is going on and they have no way to engage meaningfully, or they're oppressed in that the system actually works against them. Just ask any asylum seeker who's been trying to get into Australia what that's like. We've got plenty of systems in place to harass people. Ask anyone who ended up with government debt through no fault of their own, and the way that we've chased down the debts. You know what I mean, like the robo debt. That's the one. There are many people who end up feeling useless. Now, if that's not you and you're feeling okay, like life's pretty comfortable for me. If I'm not, don't hear me that I'm not talking to you. I'm going to come to you in a minute. When the writers of the scriptures, when the writers of the Gospels were writing, I don't think it's any mistake that they put in lots of passages about healings and about people being freed from demons. They're not just stories to be read on their own, because in many ways they carry more than just the story of that particular circumstance. They're ways of speaking into the context of the time. When Jesus talks about blindness, he doesn't just talk about physical blindness. He doesn't just act to try and correct physical blindness. He acts to try and open up the eyes of the oppressors. When Jesus heals people from deafness or from being mute, the writers of the gospel want us to know that it's more than just a physical healing. That Jesus is trying to open people's eyes and mouths in the society, in the world around them. And 2,000 years later, we can hear that story, hopefully. When Jesus frees people from demons, he's freeing them from oppression. And the writers of these Gospels want us to know this isn't just about the physical healing or delivery. They come alongside stories of the context of the time, the political and the religious context of the time. And the writers of the Gospels are trying to say so much more to their audience of the time 2,000 years ago. And they're trying to say so much more to us today. That there are people who are harassed, and that there are people who are helpless. And for those of the faith, blindness, deafness, muteness, and being part of systems of oppression, we've got to do better. There are so many people who are lost. I'm not sure if you've ever lost something of value to you. How hard do you seek? How hard do you look? How much pain does it cause you while that's lost? I can't remember if I told this story in church, so I apologise if I'm going back to the same story, but about 4 weeks ago, I was cycling along. Did I tell this story in this space? I was cycling on the cycle path and... Yeah, so I don't remember where I told this story. Did I tell this in worship? Okay, all right, so the woman with the lost keys. Yeah, and the tears and the pain and the anguish. It's a biblical parable, almost. It's not too dissimilar to the lost coin. The keys weren't going anywhere. They were stuck where they were. And that woman was so pained looking for those keys. In the passages of Scripture, there are three different times when Jesus describes something being lost, a parable about something being lost. One of them's a coin. And in similar circumstances, a coin has no thought or life of its own. It's just stuck where it is. And someone's looking for it. The other two parables I find as interesting, or interesting in different ways. There's the parable of the lost sheep. And if you've ever dealt with sheep, you know that sheep will find themselves lost. They can get themselves into the most sticky of circumstances. You know, in my previous congregation, there was someone who'd been a sheep farmer, and I remember him once leading a sermon just simply with the words, "Sheep are stupid." And sheep will find their way to get... And I've seen this myself. I've spent 2 weeks on a sheep farm once. I find the most dumbest ways. You think, how on earth did you find yourself here? But sheep have a life of their own, and they just wander off and go. And that's a way of getting yourself lost as well. The other one is the parable of the two lost sons. I know Liana preached on this a few weeks ago in my absence. But here's a person who chooses to be lost to his father. Here's a person who downs tools, downs his family, downs his life and just says, I'm gone, and chooses to be lost. But each of these parables tell us something about the nature of God. And that is that you might be lost. And I know that our language is often, for some people, and I want to applaud it, when you say, I found God. I was searching, I was seeking, and I found God. These parables also remind us that God wasn't hiding. God is always looking for us. God's always waiting on us. God is always hoping on us. God is always ready for us. We may seem lost, but God's looking for us. God's waiting for us. It's that kind of looking. God kind of knows where we are, but God's looking and waiting, letting us do our own thing, but waiting for us to turn our eyes around, to turn our hearts around. God is always waiting. Friends, in many ways that's what we have named as our starting point as a church. I think I said it in the news and notes, and I'll say it again now, is that just a few times this year, when I find the lectionary a little bit either too hard or, or it hasn't grabbed me, I'm going to preach into our mission plan. Kyle, did you get... I'm hoping... I just suddenly realised I didn't check with Kyle before. Yes, I sent Kyle an email this morning with this on it. So you might remember that our mission plan has a number of things that it addresses. But organisationally, our vision and our mission and our values are three core things that we name in our mission plan about who we are, who we see ourselves as being in our community, and what we're hoping to do. So Kyle, can you just go to the next slide? So I've got to say, this is my language. This isn't somebody else's language. This is my language. And you might have a better way of wording this. And I want to sort of say that we named... This is about what these three things are meant to address. What's our vision, what's our mission, and what's our values? And I know if you're doing a vision statement for a business, and if you're doing a vision statement for most churches, we're a little unique here, because when you're talking in business or talking, like what you're trying to describe is us. When it comes to the vision statement. Like what we do is the mission statement, and why we're doing it is what a vision normally is. Why are we doing what we do? And I personally find that a little insular and a little inward looking. I believe we are a mission church. And mission churches look outwards. A mission church looks at its community first as its starting point. So our vision statement is trying to, when we look at the world around us, we're trying to address in our vision statement, what is our offering into that space? Where is there hope? Or what are we going to do to bring hope? Like that's what we're trying to address in the vision statement, in our church's vision statement. Now, in later weeks, we'll come to the mission statement. So the mission statement is, what do we do to bring hope? So the first part of it is what's the context? When we look around us, what do we see? And what's the issue that we're trying to address? What's our posture towards that issue in our community? The second part is our mission statement is, well, what are we going to do? The strategy, which isn't up there, is how are we going to do it? But then the last one there that I've got on the screen is our values. So who will we be as we live this out? So Kyle, can you go to the next slide? This is just the overview. This is the work we did last year. So our vision statement, so when we look at the world around us, what's our offering? Where is their hope? Is finding life through finding God. So that's why I'm talking about being lost this morning, because I'm preaching into our vision statement. Our mission statement, as you may remember, is growing community and connection for all. And these are the values that we named, who we will be, and this is what we will look for in our community. Inclusion, gratitude, love, celebration, justice, transformation. One more slide, Carl. Thank you. This is what I'm talking about today. This is our vision statement. This is when we look into our community and into our world, this is the gap. This is where hope is needed. And I'd like to think we're living our lives as God's people here with this sense that we've got something to offer into the lostness of the people of our world. We're offering that you can be found. We're offering that life doesn't have to be an experience that is void of purpose, of meaning, of identity. We're saying, shed your blindness, turn, look, see. We're saying that life at its worst, at the core of life when it is at its hardest, when you feel you're most lost, God's looking for you. Whether you're a lost coin that's just stuck in one place, whether you're a sheep and you've just gone off your own way, whether you're a lost child and you've intentionally said, no, I'm not part of this anymore. God is looking for you. God is searching for you. God is waiting on you. God is longing on you. God hopes for you. God is ready. The moment you turn around, God is ready to embrace you, to hold you, to cherish you, to walk with you. And friends, that's who we're naming ourselves to be. That's what we're offering into this space of lostness in our world, to be a community that's ready, to be a community that's longing for the world around us, to be a world that's waiting for the world around us, for a world that's searching for the world around us. Is that making sense? Kind of? Maybe? No? Yeah. I'd like to think... I had an interesting discussion with Kyle this morning about cults. And why aren't we a cult? I mean, I'm not suggesting we become a cult. I'm just saying what makes us different. And I have met so many people, and you probably have too, who have experienced communities of faith as closed doors or as hard doors to come through. And friends, all I can say here is that I want us to be just like Jesus, that where we see our community harassed and harangued and helpless, that our starting point is compassion. And I think it is. I want to encourage you. That's why this wasn't a hard step to name our vision as finding life through finding God, because I think this is who we are. And I know in many ways I'm preaching to the converted, or we're all singing from the same song sheet, or whatever you want to put it. I get that. And I'm just encouraging us to continue to be this people. Let's be this people that lead with compassion. Let's be this people that see the lostness of our world and rather than judging it, embracing it. I want to finish today with the words of John Newton. You'll know this. Feel free to join me. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Amen. We're going to sing. We're actually going to sing something a little different than Amazing Grace. We're going to sing Be Thou My